Hey, welcome to Lightweight Backpacking Tips with Angie. She's going to be sharing her top 10 list here in just a minute, but I wanted to kind of let you know we are at one of Five Rivers MetroParks backcountry campsites. So we're at Cedar Ridge here in Germantown Metro Park. And so if you haven't been out to Germantown and Twin Creek and backpacked on the Twin Valley Trail, we invite you out here and you can camp in this lovely spot. This is Cedar Ridge. We also have Oak Ridge and Pine Ridge. So spend the weekend backpacking if you haven't. And also want to recognize that we're out here following CDC guidelines with masks and social distance. Angie will be speaking to us without a mask in just a minute, but we are very distant. So also, this program is supported by Subaru. So I want to thank Subaru of America for sponsoring our outdoor recreation program. So without further ado, let's turn it over to Angie. And I should say, I'm going to be monitoring questions. If you have questions, I'll go ahead and relay those to Angie. So go ahead and pop questions into the comments as we go through our top 10 lightweight backpacking tips with Angie.
All right, thanks so much for joining us today. I just want to start by saying there's lots of reasons that you might want to lighten your backpacking weight. So one of those is just to be more comfortable on the trail. Maybe it's to hike longer distances or for a longer amount of time. The lighter your pack is, the easier that's all going to be. So maybe you're new to backpacking, maybe you've been backpacking for a while, but hopefully today you'll learn something new from one of these 10 tips that I'm going to share. So I also want to reiterate that I have a lot of gear out here, but most of these tips, actually until I get to the very end, don't require purchasing a lot of expensive equipment. So a lot of people think, I want to go lightweight, but I'm going to need to get titanium, Cuban fiber, everything, and that's going to cost me hundreds of dollars. Well, really the best way to lighten your backpacking load is to leave stuff at home that you don't need. So let's dive in with tip number 1 is to take inventory. So before you even get started, you need to know what you're working with. And that means weighing every item that you have. I'm talking from your backpack, sleeping bag, down to each pair of underwear or chapstick or hand sanitizer that you plan to take. So the best tools for this are digital kitchen scale that can weigh in ounces to the 10th, even 100th of an ounce, even better. And a postage or luggage scale is really great for weighing those heavier items. So when you finally have all your gear in your backpack, you can hang it from here, or maybe all your food and your food bag, you can hang it from here and see what you're working with weight-wise. So these are really great tools. Once you weigh everything, you want to keep track of it somewhere. So I'm a big fan of just an old school Excel spreadsheet where I list each item in one column and its weight in the other column. There's also lots of websites and even apps out there that can show you cool graphs of how much of your weight is food, how much of it is the clothes you're wearing versus water, all that kind of stuff, consumables. So you can check out different websites, LighterPack, WeighMyGear.com, abundant options out there for tracking your weight. And some of those are great because they already have a lot of the common gear plugged in with weight, so you don't even have to weigh it yourself. You can pick what make and model of backpack you have, for example, and it already throws the weight up there in ounces. So knowing what you're starting with is a great place to start, taking inventory of all your gear. And then once you have these tools, like your digital kitchen scale, it makes it really helpful to decide between 2 items. So maybe you have 2 different sporks at home and you're not sure which one's lighter. One might be a 1/10 of an ounce lighter, which seems silly to care about, but remember that ounces make pounds and 1/10ths of ounces make ounces. So it all adds up in the long run, choosing the lightest option you can, which brings us to tip number 2 is mini sizing everything, right? So take the smallest size of what you need that will do the job. So I have a few examples here, like this is a roll of duct tape that's already shrunk down from what you'd buy at the store, but that's a lot of duct tape for a weekend or even a week-long backpacking trip. So what I like to do is peel some of this off and wrap it around something like a toothbrush or a pen or my trekking pole or water bottle, something I'm bringing already, just a little bit for maybe patching a hole in a tent, or if my rain jacket gets an ember in it. You don't need much. Duct tape's also great for first aid, blister control, and that kind of thing. So a little bit of duct tape is great. Here's an example of, you might have a couple pocket knives lying around or a big multi-tool, but really all I'm going to use this for is maybe cutting a little paracord or slicing a little bit of cheese for my lunch or something like that. So if I'm deciding between the two, the weight difference is actually pretty substantial. And again, It all adds up. So choose the smallest tool that will do the job. And I held up my toothbrush earlier, and you know, one of my tips isn't chopping off everything, including straps and toothbrush, but you know, why bring the whole toothbrush when you can buy a travel size toothbrush and just take the top end, or this is a kid's toothbrush that I did happen to cut, but it does the job, right? I have enough to grip. And then for toothpaste, again, travel size is great. You don't need that whole big tube. And even better, if I'm going to be out for 2 or 3 days, I can squeeze a little bit of this into a Ziploc bag and just scoop out what I need each day, instead of, even this is kind of heavy if I don't need all of that toothpaste. Hand sanitizer, another example, right? You might just pick up one, but hey, look, this is 1.5 ounces and this is only 1/2 ounce. Or maybe I'll squirt some of this and leave half of it at home. If I'm only out for a few days, you can kind of estimate how much of these things you might need. Toilet paper is another great example. If you're going to use toilet paper, for one, there's lots of natural options out there. You can leave toilet paper at home altogether, but if you're not quite ready for that, again, just roll off what you might need for each time you expect to go. And if you're pretty regular, you can say, hey, I'm out for 3 days. You know, I need enough to take care of it 3 times. Maybe throw in an extra just in case, but no need to bring out that whole roll. So again, minimizing the size of the items you bring to just what you need, that will get the job done.
And Angie, a quick question.
Yeah.
I see a freezer bag being used for that toilet paper. Are there lighter weight, even Ziploc bags?
There are. Good point. Yes, I have a lot of these freezer bags, but I actually use them for cooking, which we'll talk about later. But this is heavier. It's got the double zipper. You can get the sandwich bag that's much thinner, cheaper option for carrying things like this. So you're minimizing your weight there. Good catch, Brent. All right, so on to tip number 3 is to use things that have multiple purposes. So for example, a buff is a great thing. So I can use this to keep warm. I have one today on my neck, right? It's a great neck warmer. Put it over your ears to keep your ears warm. It's great during COVID. It can second as a mask if you're hiking and passing by other groups. It also, I mean, you can use it as a towel. So I used to pack, and some of you probably have these fancy, you know, camping towels. They're great, they dry quick, but you know, for most jobs, I could quickly dry off with the buff. So I'm gonna leave that at home, right? Saving ounces. Another really awesome use of a buff is to make a little pillow at night. So I know a lot of people struggle when they're camping, they need a pillow and maybe have stuffed clothes in a stuff sack or a trash bag, but that material is not quite as soft as something like a buff. So a great thing to do is take some of your extra clothes, maybe it's your rain gear or a layer that you're not wearing, stuff it in that buff, which is a nice, really great round pillow shape. And look at that, got a really soft backpacking pillow right there. And you can take your lightweight, nice backpacking pillow and leave it at home, right? It might only weigh a few ounces, but look, I just saved it by not bringing it at all and using this, which has multiple purposes. Another thing I use for cooking is a freezer bag koozie. So I repackage all of my food into Ziploc freezer bags and then cook them in here. And so I'm bringing this anyway. It's very lightweight, but it rehydrates my food much faster. I also used to carry this lightweight seat that I cut from a piece of a Thermarest sleeping pad. So when I was hiking and take a break and maybe it's wet or cold, I set this on the ground to eat lunch or just, you know, take a break. But I realized, hey, this little insulated pouch koozie also makes a great seat. So I can leave this at home, and this now has multiple purposes for cooking food and for taking breaks, which is just great. So those are a couple multi-purpose items. Tip number 4 is check the weather before you leave, and you should be doing that anyway. But a couple of these next tips, if you plan really well, you're not going to risk safety. You're going to be able to lighten your load just by doing a little bit of research and planning ahead and being prepared. So if I check the weather, I'm always going to bring my raincoat. So even if it says there's 0% chance of rain, you know, we've all been there where we leave our raincoat at home and inevitably it rains. But if the chance of rain is so low, I am going to ditch my rain pants and my pack cover. So these two things, you know, add a lot of weight. I can leave those at home if the chance of rain is really low or non-existent. I do line my backpack with a trash bag. So if I were to get some rain, none of my important gear, I want to make sure my clothes, my sleeping bag are always dry. So that's always in a trash bag. Compactor trash bags work great for lining inside of your pack. But there's no reason to need that extra rain cover on the outside if the chance of rain is very low. Same goes with temperatures. Again, if I'm checking the weather before I head out, you know, the day before, the morning of, and I know what the nighttime lows are going to be, I might be able to leave a layer of clothing at home or take a lighter sleeping bag. If I know it's not going to get below 40 degrees, that will help me prepare and not bring extra clothes. So a lot of time we pack extra stuff. We kind of pack our fears, right? Like, it might get cold, it might rain, I might run out of food, I might run out of water, and we just start packing all this stuff on. But if we plan ahead and prepare and do our research, you can leave a lot of that stuff behind without, again, risking your safety or comfort while you're out there. So checking the weather. Let's see, I'm on 1, 2, 3, 4. Tip number 5, I think, if I'm keeping track, again, goes to doing research. So when it comes to water, we often carry a lot of water, and water is one of the heaviest things you're going to be carrying out there. So each liter of water that you're carrying is 2.2 pounds. So that's a lot, right, that you're carrying on your back. If you, again, do your research ahead of time, check your maps, make sure that the water is flowing that time of year to the trail that you're headed to, you can really minimize how much you carry. So I used to be somebody that would always have 3 liters of water in my camelback and maybe another half a liter in a water bottle on the side of my pack, just in case. But you know, here I was walking for 3 miles, 5 miles right along a creek. So if I have abundant resources to refill my water, you should never be carrying more than a liter at a time. Now again, there's going to be places where you go where you may need to stock up on water to get to camp, or it might be a long stretch. So again, doing your research and knowing so you're not putting yourself at risk. But if there's plenty of water sources, know that you really only need to be carrying about a liter at a time. And then when you get to the water source, drink up. Fill your body with water there, and so you're carrying less until you get to the next stop. And speaking of water, something else you can leave behind are these, you know, your cute Nalgene water bottle with all your stickers that you love to collect. That can stay at home because it weighs a lot more than something you could pick up on the way to the trail. A lightweight Gatorade, Powerade, you know, disposable water bottle is a great resource. You know, you can even have Gatorade for your first stretch of the hike and then fill it with water after. And a lot of these smaller water bottles actually pair well now with the Sawyer filters and things like that are out there. The Smart Water bottle is a great example. So doing the research to minimize the water that you carry. Tip number 6 is it's okay to smell in the backcountry. In fact, we all do, we all will. Everyone that you're out hiking with is going to be in the same boat. So a few things to think about leaving at home. One is your deodorant. Leave it at home or maybe in the car for when you get back off the trail. It weighs a lot and it doesn't really help much because you should also be wearing the same clothes every day. So you don't need to pack a change of clothes for each day you're out hiking. Some synthetic clothes, you know, they'll smell the second you put them on if you've worn them before, but others, there is some like merino wool, which does a good job of kind of keeping that odor away. But basically, you just need one of everything. The only exception to that rule is maybe 2 to 3 pairs of underwear. So you can kind of rotate those out and wash them if you want. But other than that, you know, one base layer shirt, and make sure that all your clothes layer together so that you can wear them and maximize their usage. So, you know, a long sleeve, insulated, and then a warmth layer, whether that's a fleece or a down jacket. But again, only one of each that pair well together so you can minimize the amount of clothes you're bringing and don't worry about smelling. It's just part of the experience.
And Angie, we have a couple questions.
All right.
So Melissa would like to know, how do you cook in the silver freezer bag? So
Good question. I probably didn't clarify that very well. So imagine my toilet paper here is a dehydrated meal. So I repackage all of my food into this and make sure it's a freezer bag because it's able to hold boiling water. On my stove, I'll boil the appropriate amount of water, and I often, because I repackage, I'll often write in Sharpie on this bag, like, this is dinner number 1, you know, broccoli and rice, whatever, add 10 ounces of water. So I'll know how much to make. I'll boil my water, and you can pour boiling water directly into this freezer bag.
But only freezer bags?
Only freezer bag. Other bags, it will melt right through. And then you could let it sit in here, but it doesn't rehydrate quite as well and takes longer. This koozie, which is made from ductwork insulation that you could pick up at your local hardware store, most meals will rehydrate within about 12 to 15 minutes in here. And then, I'm glad you asked, because this is another great multi-use item, is instead of packing a bowl, I eat my food directly out of the freezer bag. So this is, one, what I use to bring it in, I'm already using it. Two, what I will eat it out of. So it's a great multi-use ziploc bag. And if if that feels wasteful to you, there are silicone bags out there you can buy that will do the same thing. So you can pack your food in silicone bags. They weigh a little bit more, but the great thing about those is that you are able to reuse them trip after trip. I do know some people that will reuse Ziploc bags a few times. You can wash them and dry them out at home, but eventually, you will have to throw them out. So great question.
And also by doing the freezer bag meals, you're saving fuel.
Yes.
Because you're just boiling water and being done with the fuel consumption.
Exactly.
Right?
So great thing about freezer bag cooking is you're not, adding food into your pot, letting that simmer for 10 minutes and cooking. That's using up a lot of fuel. Therefore, you're carrying more fuel. So tip number 11, right?
Yeah, and Mimi O'Malley would like to know if you're going to be demonstrating how to pack the backpack.
I am not today, but I don't have everything here. I could talk about it a little bit, but that's a great point. So if there's things today that you want to know more about, or you're like, hey, your next Facebook Live, demonstrate how to pack a pack, we'd love to hear that, because we're always looking for ideas of things we can share. So that might be a great topic when I have everything here to show how to pack your pack. Good question.
But you may have some generalities at the end.
I may have some generality I can show at the end.
And then Donna wants to know what's in your emergency kit and what product to defend against bugs, ticks, and flying insects.
Oh, wow, good question. So I don't have my first aid kit here today, but again, keeping it pretty simple, especially with just me or me and my husband out backpacking, I have basic things like something for blister prevention, whether that's duct tape, maybe a little bit of moleskin, Band-Aids, something for a little bit more severe bleed, like gauze. I'll often bring like an ACE bandage. Trying to think what else I have in my pack. Some basic meds like Tylenol, some diphenhydramine, maybe a little ointment for a cut. Ibuprofen is great.
And what's the diphenhydramine for?
So allergies, so like Benadryl, I guess, yes. So, a few basic meds and basic supplies, but that's about it. My first aid kit, again, packed into a Ziploc size bag as well. You don't need a huge kit. Now, if I'm leading a trip for participants, it might be a little bit bulkier if you're guiding or something like that, but for just personal use, something small with just the basics. You don't need 50 Band-Aids for one weekend, right? So
what about bugs and ticks and flying insects?
To me, one of the best things you can do to prevent against those is wearing long sleeves. They even make bug nets, so it's less stuff that you have to spray on your gear and on your body. But ticks can be an issue. So using something with a little bit of DEET usually helps do the trick. And sometimes you can even pre-treat clothes or even your tent and some gear ahead of time with different chemicals that will help deter those bugs.
So the lightest weight thing is just to get bitten by the bugs?
The lightest weight thing, I think, is to layer up, even if it's a little warm. So that's where it's nice to have like a long sleeve, very thin shirt, but long, thick enough that'll keep the bugs off, and get in your tent if it gets really bad. Having bug protection in that way. But again, kind of like the hand sanitizer and toothpaste, if you do bring bug spray, you don't need that huge big bottle. You can buy the travel size or repackage it into a smaller spray can or bottle so that you're carrying just the minimum amount that you need.
We have 2 water bottle questions, Angie. Are you ready?
I hope.
Okay. Jeff says he's seen a lot of collapsible roll-up style water bottles.
Yes.
Would this be a better option to save on space, or are you better going for less weight with the disposable bottles?
Gosh, that's a good question. Those are, I'd have to weigh them. They're probably very similar in weight, and I would, I guess this is slightly lighter. I often, and I don't have one with me today, will sometimes carry one of each, because sometimes it's just nice to have a hard-sided bottle to drink out of. They're easier for me. But I do love the collapsible. They fit great, again, on like a Sawyer water filter. They're nice to like scoop water out of the creek or river. But again, they do save a lot of space by rolling them up. So you might want one of each. While I said you typically would only want to carry about 1 liter of water at a time while you're out, having the capacity for at least 2 liters is important, or more if you're going to be somewhere where you're not going to have water for miles, or a long hike to camp without water, and you might need 3 to 4 liters of water. But so yeah, having both a hard side and a soft side is a great way to go.
And Emily and Rob say great tips, very helpful, but I now have a question from Andy Niekamp.
Oh boy.
Okay, so he says that some people drill holes in their toothbrush to save weight. He's thinking of drilling holes in his water bottle to save weight. Is that a good idea?
Well, Andy, you know, if you drilled small holes, it would slowly leak. I think you would be getting your pack wet, which would actually add weight to your pack at the end of the day. So it's not a good tip, but I do like the idea of drilling holes in your toothbrush. So there are some lightweight tips that I'm not even planning to touch on because they're like tips 11 and 12 maybe for me. But you know, drilling holes in things, cutting straps and tags off of everything, right? So some people, you know, get down to that level. But you think about it, if I cut the tag off of everything I have here, every sleeping bag, backpack, piece of clothing, I'd probably have a nice little pile of about half an ounce that I saved. So, and ounces make pounds, right? But no, I would not recommend holes in the water bottle. Thanks for asking that great question.
Donna would like to add that ex officio clothing with Insectishield has helped her protect against mosquitoes.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so I mentioned you can treat with permethrin or there's different chemicals out there to treat your own clothes. But now a lot of manufacturers are actually creating them with it in it, so that's even better in my opinion. Buy one already done, you know it's done right. And just follow the instructions for washing and maintaining that so you know that it's still on there. All right. I don't remember what tip I'm on. I think 7, but we'll see. So we talked about water. Next, I want to talk about food. So if you are going to be out backpacking for more than 2 or 3 days, the heaviest thing that you're going to be carrying, especially when you start out on the trail, is your food. So one great way to kind of minimize the weight you're carrying is to think about having really calorie-dense food. So food is fuel while you're out on the trail. And you need to be getting 3,000 to 4,000 calories a day while you're out backpacking. So you want to try to get the most calories in the least amount of weight, if that makes sense. So a good place to be aiming for is 100 to 125 calories per ounce. And how you can do that is measure out, you know, a serving, a half a cup of cashews, and put it on the scale, and you can see for, you know, 140, or this is 160 calories per serving, and it'll tell you how many ounces that is. So that can kind of help you figure out that ratio. But knowing what food has really high calories and fat is helpful too. So nuts are great, seeds are great, chocolate is great, milk chocolate's even better, or Snickers is even better. This is all I had laying around the house, but bars are great. They have lots of calories kind of packed into a small amount of space and weight. Seeds, I don't know if I said olive oil, but adding that to your food, peanut butter, other nut butters are all really great fatty, calorie-dense food. But you also want to be keeping nutrition in mind, so you don't want to live off, I mean, you could for a couple of days live off of Cliff Bars and peanut butter and nuts, but, you know, remembering to add some nutrition in there too. But trying to reach that goal of 100 to 125 calories per ounce will get you to your food weighing about 1.5 pounds or 2 a day. So that's a good rule of thumb. If you're packing up for a 4-day backpacking trip and you pack up all your food in your food bag, put it on that luggage scale and make sure that you don't have more than 2 pounds for each day that you're going to be out on your trip, because that adds up quickly. So if I was out on a 4-day trip, 2 pounds a day, that's 8 pounds I'm adding to my pack right there. That's by far the heaviest thing you're going to be carrying. So if you can knock that down to 6.5 by switching out some of those foods for more calorie-dense foods, that can help you save some weight as well.
And some people are a little cautious about trying to hit exactly the amount of food they need for their trip. As an emergency food, would you pack pistachios or a little bit of olive oil as something to get you through a bonus?
And so, you know, keeping safety in mind, I want to pack for the number of meals I'm expecting to be out there, but things happen, right? What if I get injured and I'm out there for a little bit longer? So a lot of people pack an extra meal, which is fine. Maybe focusing on those calorie-dense things is best. So like macadamia nuts have lots of calories. They're great. Or a little thing of olive oil, you know. So packing some of those foods instead of bringing an extra bagel might do you better as far as space and weight goes when it's coming to extra food to have along. All right. Tip number 7, 8, somewhere in there. Let's talk about footwear. So if you want to be lighter weight while you're out backpacking, you really need to ditch the heavy boots if you're still hiking in these. So unless you really need, tall, higher mid-weight boots for ankle support, you can get away with hiking in some lighter weight, more breathable trail runners. And there's a saying that for every pound you're carrying on your feet is the equivalent of carrying 5 pounds on your back. So while you might not think about this as lightweight backpacking, right, mattering about what's in your pack, every step you take, your foot is lifting this heavy boot, so that will wear on you over time. You can go a lot faster, be a lot more comfortable in lightweight trail runners, and especially if you're minimizing the rest of your gear and carrying a lighter pack, these will be all you need for foot support. The great thing about having a comfortable, more breathable shoe while you're out hiking is that when you get to camp, your feet aren't going to be like, oh my gosh, get me out of these boots, because they're pretty comfortable and they'll probably already be dried out. So you can also leave those comfy camp shoes at home and just use, sorry, I keep throwing stuff at Brent, just use your trail runners when you get to camp. Now, I know some people are concerned, and it is really important to take care of your feet. So if you get to camp and it's just a wet, soggy day and your feet are drenched and you've got wet socks, it's really important to dry your feet out. So you don't want to just walk around camp in these wet socks and wet shoes. So if you really need to dry your feet out, another great tip is to switch to dry socks. And then you might have done this when you were a kid with like sandwich bags, but bring a bread bag for each foot, put a dry sock on, put your bread bag over your dry sock, and then put it back in your trail runner. And now you have a camp shoe that weighs almost nothing. So bread bags instead of camp shoes if you need them. All right, tip number 9. And this is the one that you might hear about a lot when you hear people talking about lightweight backpacking. This is the one that does require potentially purchasing new equipment that might have some expense to it. But if you're looking to, where can I start actually buying a new sleeping bag, or what equipment should I start with? You want to think about the big 3. So that's your backpack, that's your sleep system, which is your sleeping bag and sleeping pad, and your shelter. So whether that's a tent, a hammock, a tarp. So the big 3, the goal is to get each of those under 3 pounds. So that might be something you do slowly. I know a couple years ago for Christmas, I asked for my down sleeping bag. It might be a little late to get it on the list for this year, but incrementally you can slowly shrink down your gear. Look for used gear sales so you're not, spending hundreds of dollars to do it. But you can see quickly if this is an old sleeping bag. This is a 35-degree synthetic bag, so you can see its size. If you were here, you could feel that it's much heavier than this 35-degree down sleeping bag. So not only am I getting the lighter weight, look how much smaller it is, right? So as I start to shrink down some of my gear that goes in my pack, it allows me to eventually invest in a smaller backpack, which you can see both size and weight difference here in backpacks. So one thing you want to be cognizant of is not just being like, all right, I'm going to dive into this lightweight backpacking thing and go out and buy the lightest weight backpack I can get. And meanwhile, you still have lots of extraneous gear, a heavy sleeping bag, a heavy tent. And for one, it might not all fit in there. 2, if it does fit in there, a backpack like this might only be rated to carry 20 or 25 pounds, and you've just loaded it with 40 pounds, and it's going to be really uncomfortable. You'd actually be better off to have a backpack with more support that might weigh another pound, pound and a half, but it's going to feel like a lot less weight on your back because it's supporting all that weight that you're carrying a lot better.
So that gets into kind of new backpackers versus veteran backpackers wanting to lighten up.
Yes.
So someone who already has a lot of equipment, the backpack would be their final purchase? I
think so, yeah. I think I would start with the sleeping bag and the shelter and then go to the backpack. So shelter, for example, you might have 1 or 2 person tent with poles that looks and weighs something like this. But if you upgrade to a hammock, for example, or a lighter weight just tarp or tarp tent, again, size and weight difference is pretty substantial, and you can imagine how much less room this takes up in a pack. So once I get down to my smaller gear and I remember all these 8 tips of things I can leave at home and don't need, then I can put it all into a new, smaller, lightweight backpack and feel much more comfortable out on the trail.
Eric has a question about, you had talked about footwear, so back on footwear. He said trail runners for winter backpacking, especially when snow is on the ground, are expected, ? So yeah. I guess seasonally, how do your equipment and lightweight tips vary?
Great question. So seasonally, layers of clothing might change. I'm still only bringing one of everything, but I might add another layer in there. when it comes to footwear, I personally still wouldn't hike in something this heavy in the winter. I am a big fan of trail runners that also have a Gore-Tex lining, and pairing that with a gaiter that's waterproof, personally. So it's still lighter weight, but I am getting a little bit more warmth. I don't maybe want all that mesh for breathability in the winter, and if I know my feet are going to get wet, having that Gore-Tex is key. So good question. Yes, this is kind of three-season backpacking I'm talking about, but I think for winter that footwear would change a little bit. And all right, so I think I got through 9 tips. I might have miscounted in there, but I think there were 9.
I'll throw in a tip from Jeffrey.
Yes.
He says losing body weight is also helpful and healthful.
Ah, that's good. Yes. If you get out and backpack a lot, it's bound to happen, right? Oh, I forgot to show back here is part of my sleep system is sleeping pad. So this is, I thought I had this lightweight Thermarest self-inflating pad, but look at, really how bulky it is compared to some of the newer options out there that are much lighter and, again, more compact. So both of those, not just weight, it's how much space it takes up in your pack, is helpful to get towards that smaller backpack. So those are my first 9 tips, and then my final tip is to reevaluate when you get back home. So after every backpacking trip I go on, before I start hanging tents and drying gear and cleaning things out, I sit down and I unpack my backpack one item at a time, and I put it into one of 3 piles. So the first pile is the stuff that I used, right? Like, yep, I used that layer, I used that layer. The second pile is the things I didn't use, right? Like, yeah, I guess I didn't really need that titanium mug. I just drank coffee out of my water bottle or my pot, maybe I could leave that behind. And then the third pile might be things that you didn't use, but you should always bring. So hopefully I didn't use my first aid kit, but it doesn't mean I'm not going to bring it next time, right? These are my raincoat, the staples that I always bring for safety reasons, will go in that third pile. But that middle pile is where you can start working with maybe trying to leave a couple of those items behind on your next trip. So reevaluating after each trip will really help you update your spreadsheet that you're keeping, so you can keep inventory of your gear to really know what you're working with. So those are my top 10 tips for lightening your backpack. Hopefully there is at least one new nugget of information you took away from it. If you have any tips that you want to share, please put them in the comments, because I know a lot of you out there have been backpacking before, and we'd love to hear from you. And Brent, are there any other questions?
There's no questions, although Lauren says she loves the way you reuse the bread bags.
Ah, so, yes, look at that, reusing.
But I wanted to mention, if someone's trying to work out their system and they want to get comfortable, because I think there is a safety kind of mindset that people are concerned about with going too lightweight.
Yep.
The Twin Valley Trail is a great place to test your system.
It's the perfect place to test your system.
It's close to home. It's right here in our backyard. And so let's take a tour of the Cedar Ridge Backcountry Campsite and show people what it's like to camp here along the Twin Valley Trail. But this is a great place, before you go to the Rocky Mountains to test your system, come on out here to Germantown and Twin Creek MetroParks.
Yes, and you're never too far from your car, so if you get here and that lightweight tarp you bought just isn't setting up right, or you're getting cold, or you're getting wet, you can pack up and head back to the car, right? So it's a very great place to start. So right here at Cedar Ridge, we are in what's called the common area. So this is where we encourage anyone camping at one of the 3 campsites, which we'll walk down to that kind of the communal area to hang out and cook your food, so that you're not cooking down by your tent. And I will mention that right now, because of COVID, we are only allowing one household or individual to stay at each backcountry site. So if you're reserving it right now, you don't have to worry about sharing this space with anybody else outside of your group or family. So this is where we'd encourage you to come hang out, cook your meals. So we'll head down to one of the sites, and as we're walking, feel free to be thinking about any other lightweight backpacking questions.
We've had a couple come in. The food bag is made of duct insulation, ? What you would put your freezer bag in to rehydrate?
Yeah, it's ductless insulation. You can buy a big roll of it at like Home Depot or Lowe's, but I've also heard that local hardware stores like Ace sell it in smaller quantities. So you can, just buy a chunk that you need.
And the water bottle versus the bladder, ? She's asking because the bottle is kind of more multi-use.
Which one's better? Is that?
Yeah, water bottle versus water bladder.
Yeah, and again, you might be having a couple more hydrated when I have that full, and I can just drink as I go. And those are pretty lightweight too, so it's okay to have both a water bladder and a hard-sided water bottle, but ditch that Nalgene or that stainless steel or heavy water bottle that you have and get something lighter.
And Susan said, how do you prepare your meals? You put each meal in a separate bag, and she also asked about cookware, which you only have the freezer bag basically, right? But what are you boiling the water in?
Yeah, so I repackage each meal into one freezer bag. So each dinner will be in one freezer bag. I might use other Ziploc bags for lunch or trail mix or snacks, but each dinner is in its own because once I cook it, I eat out of it, and then that becomes trash. Those bags also make great trash bags for as I eat my granola bar, other snacks that have wrappers. I can throw them in there and use that to contain all of my trash. And then my only other cookware outside of my pot freezer bag is a titanium spork, which is very lightweight. But again, if you're not ready to invest the $12 in a titanium spork, picking up a solid spoon that you use for a Frosty at Wendy's, those I found are the best. They're a little more sturdy than most plastic spoons. Pick it up on your way to the trailhead, and you can use that for your whole trip, and it's super lightweight.
And did you have alcohol stove or other stove that you were showing?
I didn't show a stove, but I do, if I'm using freezer bag meals, I typically just bring a small alcohol stove, like a pop can stove, because all I need to do is bring water to a boil. I'm not cooking on my stove or anything like that, so that's another great way to lighten your load is if you're just doing lightweight cooking, an alcohol stove is a good option. So here we are at campsite A. There are 3 campsites here. Each of them is marked. So you can see this one's A here. And the site's big enough and intended for 2 small backpacking tents. So, and a maximum of 6 people at each site. So if you had more than 6 people, you'd have to reserve multiple sites, but they're just these small, cozy sites, great for backpacking. The only way to get here is on foot, so it really is a backpacking and primitive experience right here, 25 minutes from downtown Dayton. I will say one important thing to know before coming out and backpacking on the Twin Valley Trail is that we do not allow campfires out here because they're primitive sites and we don't have the ability to easily stock firewood, and we don't want people scrounging up every last down limb from this campsite. We don't allow campfires out here, but there's lots of things you can do, check out the stars, hang out around your camp stove, read a book. There's lots of ways to stay entertained at night without a campfire. So last piece of there are 2 more, what we call them little pods, but A, B, and C, we won't take you to all of them, but there also is an outhouse that I didn't show. We can kind of show on the way back up. And we actually had 2 backpackers who were out camping there last night this morning, so the Twin Valley Trail is open right now. It's a great time of year to be out. So you can get online at MetroParks.org and reserve your campsite 24/7. And if it's available tonight, you can book it right now. So there's no minimum time in advance that you need to book the campsite.
And how long is the Twin Valley Trail?
The Twin Valley Trail is 30 miles. We've just added some trail in Germantown, so there's a new section of the Twin Valley Trail if you haven't checked it out. That goes through a prairie and a wetland. It's beautiful. So yeah, there's lots of different loops and options. I think Brett mentioned, but we're at Cedar Ridge, which is one of 3 primitive campsites. So if you get online and look up the Twin Valley Trail on our website, you can see some suggested hikes that we have put up. So if you're looking for a 1-night experience or a 2-night experience, we've kind of mapped out some options for you.
And before we go up there, Dennis wanted to clarify one thing. He didn't catch what you recommended for boiling water, on a stove or a pan?
Oh, on a pot, yes. So I use an alcohol stove, and I'm sorry that I didn't bring it, but a small pop can stove, and then I do have a small titanium pot that I use that holds about 2 cups of water. And I found for me, individually, that's plenty of water for any meal that I need to make.
And so before we go to the outhouse, this trail behind you is a spur off of the main trail, correct? So the main trail might have other hikers, but they don't really come right through the camp area.
Yeah, exactly. So you'd have to take this side trail off of the main trail to get to the campsite, so it feels a little more secluded. You're not, constantly getting hikers walking by. And I don't know that we need to walk up to the outhouse, but you can see it there through the woods. So each of the campsites has an outhouse, which is nice, so you're not worried about, where to go to the bathroom or digging holes. And those are well maintained as well. So
Just a big old thank you from Dennis.
Oh, great. Thanks, Dennis. And I don't know, someone at the beginning asked about packing your pack, and I mentioned I don't quite have everything, but I'll give you a few tips. Is when I start to pack, the things that I put at the bottom are, so we talk about, we use the acronym CBS, Conveniently Balanced System. So I want to make sure things that I need to get to are convenient. So that means things that I'm not going to be using until the end of the day, I will shove in the bottom. So that's usually my sleeping pad, my sleeping bag, and my shelter. I put down at the bottom because I know I won't need those until I get to camp. Another thing to be thinking about is where you want the weight of your pack. So that I mentioned, you know, if you're out for multiple days, your food bag might weigh 5-8 pounds. So that's going to be the heaviest thing you're carrying. I like to put that kind of up and down in the center. So the strongest part of my back kind of here will take on that weight. And then I kind of surround that with puffier things like clothes. And then things at the top are things I want to be able to get to conveniently. So maybe my snack for the day, my rain jacket, an extra layer in case I take a break or it cools off, my map, compass, anything that I want to have quick access to is either at the top of my pack if I'm carrying a pack like this, or in the lid or brain of my pack if I have a pack with pockets like that. So, you know, things to be thinking about when you're looking at purchasing a pack too are some of those features. Pockets on the hip belt are great too for stashing those items that you want to get to quickly, like a snack, hand sanitizer, your phone if you're using it for taking pictures or anything like that. So that's kind of a quick breakdown of how I pack my pack, but maybe we'll do a longer version here in the future. That's a great idea.
So final question, is lightweight backpacking for everyone? Is there a certain mindset? What mentally goes into combining your kind of approach with the actual equipment?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think lightweight backpacking is for everyone. So sometimes people get caught up in these terms and definitions of like, I'm an ultralight backpacker, I'm a lightweight backpacker, and those often come with kind of goal weights. So I haven't mentioned, but for lightweight backpacking is typically your base weight. So that means most of the stuff I have out here outside of consumables. So consumable things are your food, your water, your fuel, anything that you're going to be using up as you go. Keep those aside. Your base weight is everything else, and you want to try to keep that under 20 pounds is considered lightweight. Under 10 pounds is considered ultralight. But you know, you don't need to get caught up in the weight. I think everybody can benefit from lightening what they're carrying, right? Even if you're going to be somebody that's only out on a, you know, 5 mile, one night, overnight, those 5 miles are going to be much more comfortable if you're not carrying this 40-pound backpack. And again, I think a lot of these tips shed those ounces without sacrificing comfort or safety. And again, if you're somebody that's going to be spending a lot of time at camp, you might want to pack some camp comforts, as we call them, like your down booties or a book or a nice foldable chair to sit in at camp. And if you can shed ounces in places where you don't really need them, then you can bring a couple comfort items without really increasing the weight of your pack. So I think lightweight backpacking, whether you want to call it that or not, is for everyone, and everyone can benefit from, you know, slowly decreasing the amount of weight in your pack to make it more comfortable to hike longer, to hike further, or just be happier while you're out on the trail.
And a quick recap, Eric missed the pack liner versus pack cover. If you want to cover that briefly again, but the thank yous and the kudos are rolling in. Doug Sheldon says, thank you, Brent and Angie and all involved. Jordan is behind the camera. Very informative, actually it's a quadruple exclamation point.
Awesome. Yeah, so I threw my pack cover over here at Brent earlier because I left it at home. If I was going on a trip and I knew it was going to be soggy, raining the whole trip, I would probably choose to bring my pack cover along with me because it protects the outside of my pack. Well, I might have everything inside it, waterproof or in trash bags. If this material is soaking up water all day, it will get heavier, right? So everything is heavier when it's wet. But if I check the weather ahead of time and I saw that the chance of rain is very low, minimal, I'd leave this at home and I line my entire backpack with a trash bag. And compactor trash bags are the best I found. They're a little thicker, still really lightweight, but more durable. Like I used one compactor trash bag my entire through hike on the Appalachian Trail, and it lasted the whole time. So, and it does a great job of keeping everything dry inside. So again, even if you're leaving your pack cover at home, you want to make sure the important things inside are still protected, like your sleeping bag and your clothes. Good question.
Michelle actually said thank you. I've never gone backpacking before and hope to find a group to do that with this year. Are there some groups or resources that people can get connected with? And another question, if people are interested in this, are there people they could follow online or kind of read about, such as, I know we've mentioned Andrew Skirka in the write-up. So kind of a resource question.
Yeah, so a great place locally to start for resources is outdoordayton.com. So that's got a list of local organizations, outdoor retailers. Maybe you can buy the equipment or rent the equipment and try it out. Dayton Hikers is a great place to meet like-minded people who a lot of them are out for day hikes, but I know there's a lot of people in the group that also like to backpack. So if you're looking for other people to kind of get involved with, Outdoor Adventure Connection and Great Miami Outfitters both lead trips kind of regionally. So if you're looking to head out on a backpacking trip but want a guided experience.
And a time to keep.
And a time to keep, thank you. And again, all of those are listed on outdoordayton.com in case I missed anybody else. But so if you're looking for a kind of a guided experience, MetroParks is a great place to look. We're not currently doing any in-person programming, but check back on our website. We do backpacking overnights, kind of teaching basic skills here on the Twin Valley Trail. And there are tons of people you could follow. Andrew Skirka is a great one. He's got a website with a blog. He keeps lots of great tips. Adventure Allen is another one I like to follow. Andrew Skirka's book, The Ultimate Hiker Gear Guide, is a great resource as well. There's lots of great books. I'm trying to think of any other.
Way back a long time ago, one of the forebears of lightweight backpacking, Ray Jardine, was kind of a
great resource.
I'm sure some of that's maybe still current, but
yeah,
25 years ago is when
and Ray
he
Jardine
was
is
out.
a great place to start if you are thinking about doing some of your own DIY backpacking, or he has kits you can buy to actually sew your own quilt or sew your own, actually this is I have it somewhere here, a Rayway tarp that you can, he sends you the materials, but you sew it yourself. So that's kind of fun to experiment with lightweight gear without investing quite as much as you would for some of those higher end equipment. So lots of resources out there. If you have any of your favorite resources, share them in the comments as well. Maybe blogs you follow. There's so many people out hiking long distance trails now that you can follow on YouTube. There used to be, kind of blogs and stuff, but now a lot of them are doing video as they go along. So those are great resources too, to kind of see what they're doing and learn from them as they go. Any other questions?
That's it. Thank you, Angie.
All right, thanks.